I am no longer a practicing doctor. After spending over 4 decades sitting across from thousands of men in my clinic, I finally hung up my white coat. But as I sit here today in my quiet home, sipping my morning coffee, I find myself haunted by one simple truth that I cannot ignore. It's the same truth that drove me for so many years to help men reclaim what they had lost, or thought they had lost in their later years. You see, the world loves to lie to men after they turn 60. It whispers in your ear that feeling weaker is normal, that losing your edge is just nature's way of slowing you down, that the growing distance between you and your wife, physically, emotionally, even intimately, is simply what happens with age. That waking up exhausted, walking around in a mental fog, and feeling your body betray you are things you should simply accept as part of getting older. But I'm here to tell you, that is not the truth. I've seen too much to believe that cruel story. I've looked into the eyes of men, good men who were strong providers, loyal husbands, devoted fathers, men who built families, businesses, entire lives, and then, sometime after 60, something changed. Slowly, quietly, almost like a thief in the night, their bodies began to turn against them. At first, it was subtle. A bit more tired in the morning, a little less stamina on afternoon walks. A faint hesitation in the bedroom. Then the changes became harder to ignore. The erections that once came naturally started to falter. The warmth and closeness with their wives grew more distant, not out of lack of love, but out of quiet shame and silent frustration. They still desired, they still cared, but their bodies refused to cooperate. And perhaps worst of all, they couldn't even explain why. They didn't feel sick. Their doctors told them their blood work looked fine for their age. And yet, they were slipping further into exhaustion, irritability, disconnection, losing not only their physical performance but pieces of themselves. That, my friend, is what terrified me as a physician, because it wasn't just one man, it was hundreds. Thousands. Over my long career, I watched an epidemic unfold right under our noses, not of disease, but of decline. Of vibrant men being slowly hollowed out by forces they didn't understand, and which modern medicine too often dismissed as aging. But here's the truth I wish every man over 60 knew. Much of this decline is not inevitable. It's not a death sentence written by the calendar. In fact, in many cases, it is not aging at all. It is deficiency. Deficiency so simple, so silent, that most men, and even many of their doctors, completely overlook it. What your body is screaming for is not found in a pill bottle labeled performance booster or testosterone enhancer sold on late-night television. No, it is crying out for something far more basic, far more primal. The essential building blocks your body needs to function as a man. Without them, your circulation falters, your energy collapses, your confidence erodes. With them, you may very well find that much of what you thought you had lost was simply waiting to return. Over the years, I have uncovered 3 key nutrients that sit at the heart of this crisis. When these nutrients are missing, as they so often are after 60, men begin to crumble. But when restored, they do something remarkable. They reignite the very systems that define manhood: strength, stamina, drive, clarity, intimacy, and vitality itself. Now, I will not pretend that these are magic bullets. Nothing in medicine ever is. But I have witnessed transformations that would shock you. Men who arrived in my office defeated, and who later walked out with their shoulders back, their marriages revived, and their sense of self reclaimed. The tragedy is that most men will never hear this message. They will continue blaming their age, their stress, their fate. They will surrender quietly, slowly fading as the years go by, convinced that their best days are behind them. That is why I am speaking to you now. Because if you're still listening, still searching, still hoping that there might be an answer, you're right. There is an answer. And you are about to hear it. In the next few moments, I will reveal exactly what these 3 vitamins are, why they are so essential to your masculinity after 60, and how you can begin restoring them, safely, naturally, and effectively, starting today. But before we continue, I ask one favor. If what I have said so far resonates with you, if you've seen these struggles in your own life, please subscribe to this channel. Your support gives me the motivation to continue sharing this knowledge, to keep creating content that may help thousands of other men who, like you, deserve better answers. Now take a breath, because what I'm about to share may very well change how you experience the rest of your life, and perhaps help you finally feel like yourself again. Let me begin. As a doctor who has walked alongside thousands of men in the later chapters of their lives, I have learned to listen closely, not just to their words, but to their unspoken frustrations. And over time, I began to recognize a pattern that haunted me. It often started the same way. A man would sit across from me, shoulders heavy, eyes tired, but still burning with a quiet hope. One afternoon, many years ago, I met Paul, a retired accountant from Ohio. He was 67, and on the surface, he looked remarkably healthy. His blood pressure was controlled, his cholesterol numbers weren't alarming, and he exercised 3 times a week. Yet there was something in his voice that told a different story. "Doc," he began softly, "I love my wife, I still want her, but something's missing. I want to feel that connection again. My mind wants it, but my body, it just doesn't respond." That pause, the shame, the frustration was familiar to me. I had heard it so many times before. And more importantly, I had seen what many others had missed. Paul's problem wasn't a lack of desire. His issue was far more mechanical. His body had quietly lost its ability to deliver blood where it needed to go. His circulation was failing him, slowly and silently. You see, when most people think of intimacy issues in older men, they immediately jump to hormones. Or worse, to the idea that these men have simply lost interest. But in my decades of experience, I have found that desire rarely disappears with age. What disappears is the body's ability to support that desire physically. At the very center of this problem lies a single nutrient that most men underestimate: vitamin D. Yes, the sunshine vitamin. The nutrient we're told children need for strong bones. But I'm here to tell you that vitamin D plays a far more crucial role in the life of a man beyond 60. The secret lies in a tiny molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the master regulator of your blood vessels. It relaxes and widens your arteries, allowing rich, oxygen-loaded blood to flow freely throughout your body. This is the very lifeblood of your manhood, literally. Without proper blood flow, the most important moments of connection with your partner become frustrating, disappointing, and ultimately heartbreaking. Vitamin D is one of the key triggers your body uses to produce nitric oxide efficiently. But here's the problem. As you age, your body's ability to create and store vitamin D plummets. The reasons are many. Your skin, once vibrant and highly efficient at converting sunlight into vitamin D, becomes less responsive. You likely spend more time indoors than you did in your youth, whether due to retirement, weather, or simply lifestyle. And when you do go outside, you may wear protective clothing or sunscreen that blocks the very rays your body needs to manufacture this crucial vitamin. The result? A slow, quiet deficiency that strangles your circulation from the inside out. When blood flow diminishes, the effects ripple across your entire existence. Your energy fades. Your stamina erodes. Your confidence, so deeply tied to your ability to connect with your spouse, begins to crumble. And the worst part? Most men have no idea that this silent thief has taken hold. Studies suggest that nearly half of American adults over 60 are deficient in vitamin D, and yet most doctors never even test for it. Why? Because they too have fallen into the trap of blaming these symptoms on normal aging. But I refuse to accept that. I've seen too many men like Paul, who felt trapped only to discover that a simple correction of their vitamin D levels unlocked dramatic improvements in their circulation, their intimacy, and their daily vitality. And here's where it becomes empowering. Restoring vitamin D is not complicated, nor is it risky. In fact, it is one of the most natural and foundational things you can do for your body. When I worked with Paul, we started small. I advised him to begin each day with 15 to 20 minutes of morning sunlight. Just that brief exposure, ideally without sunscreen and with some skin exposed, allowed his body to awaken its vitamin D production naturally. But because Ohio winters are long and gray, we also incorporated a daily high-quality vitamin D3 supplement, the active form that the body absorbs and utilizes most efficiently. Food became part of his therapy, too. We introduced more fatty fish into his meals: salmon, tuna, sardines, along with fortified dairy products that provided an additional, steady source of vitamin D. And something remarkable happened. Within weeks, Paul returned to my office. His walk was lighter, his eyes brighter. And when he spoke of his wife, there was a boyish grin that hadn't been there in years. "Doc," he said with quiet wonder, "I feel like I'm back in my own skin again. But I must caution you, as I cautioned him. This is not magic. This is not a cure-all. But it is chemistry, your body's natural design being restored, one simple deficiency at a time. Men like Paul remind me why I have dedicated my life to this work. Because I believe too many men suffer in silence, blaming themselves for problems rooted not in weakness or failure, but in biology that can be gently corrected with knowledge and consistent action. Vitamin D is not just a vitamin. For men over 60, it is often the first key to unlocking a second chapter of vitality. It opens the gates of circulation that fuel everything else: your energy, your mental clarity, your emotional connection, and yes, your performance as a man. And yet this is only the beginning. Because even when your blood flows freely, you still need the fuel to carry that oxygen throughout your body. You need the raw energy to transform that circulation into action, passion, and stamina. That, my friend, brings us to the second key that so many overlook. Before we dive into that, I urge you again, if this message resonates with you, if you've seen yourself in Paul's story, please subscribe to this channel. Your support allows me to continue sharing these hard-won lessons from my years in practice, and perhaps reach another man out there who needs to hear this. Now, let us continue our journey into the powerful, overlooked world of vitamin B12. As a doctor who spent decades sitting across from men in the second half of their lives, I learned that fatigue can be far more terrifying than pain. Pain is sharp. Pain demands attention, but fatigue, true, unrelenting, creeping fatigue, is silent. It wraps around a man slowly like a heavy fog that never quite lifts. I remember one patient very clearly. His name was Robert. He was a 72-year-old retired firefighter from Texas, a strong man, built from years of physically demanding work. The kind of man who ran toward burning buildings while others ran away. The kind of man who had been the rock for his family for decades. When he first sat down in my office, I could see that strength was still inside him. But there was something missing from his eyes. An exhaustion that went far deeper than just feeling tired. "Doc," he said, and paused, almost embarrassed. "I don't understand. I sleep 8 hours every night. I eat my meals. I even go for walks. But when I wake up, I feel like I haven't slept at all. My body feels heavy. My head feels cloudy. And when my wife reaches for me, I just don't have it in me anymore." That final sentence carried the weight of a man who felt like he was slowly vanishing from his own life. Robert wasn't alone. Over the years, I've seen hundreds of men sit in that very chair and describe that same ghostly exhaustion. They weren't depressed. They weren't lazy. Their hearts were willing, but their bodies could no longer answer the call. At the root of this mystery, more often than not, was a quiet deficiency that few doctors bother to investigate. It is one of the most overlooked nutritional failures in men over 60. Vitamin B12 deficiency. You see, B12 is not just another vitamin on a list. It is one of the essential sparks that keeps the entire engine of your body running. Without it, your system slowly begins to lose power, not because of age, but because the fuel conversion process itself breaks down. Vitamin B12 plays a central role in converting the food you eat into usable energy. Without it, your body struggles to extract energy from calories. You can eat well, you can sleep long hours, you can do everything you're supposed to do, but without B12, none of it sticks. You remain empty, as if your body is attempting to start a car with no gas in the tank. But the damage goes far beyond simple fatigue. Vitamin B12 is also critical for producing red blood cells, the carriers of oxygen to every muscle, every organ, every inch of your body. When B12 levels drop, fewer healthy red blood cells circulate. This means less oxygen reaches your brain, your muscles, and yes, your reproductive system. Every part of your body that depends on oxygen delivery begins to slow down, creating that frustrating sensation of moving through life half awake. Mental clarity dulls, physical stamina declines. Even mood and emotional resilience begin to weaken, leaving many men feeling detached from the world around them. Now, one might assume that B12 deficiency would only affect those who aren't eating well, vegetarians, vegans, or those living with malnutrition, but this is one of the crueler tricks nature plays on men as they age. You see, even if you consume plenty of B12-rich foods, eggs, meat, fish, and dairy, your ability to absorb that B12 from your gut diminishes over time. As you grow older, your stomach produces less acid and intrinsic factor, both necessary for proper B12 absorption, so even the best diet may no longer be enough. That's why I call B12 deficiency a hidden famine. The food is there, The body simply can't take it in. This was precisely what was happening to Robert. His blood work showed normal iron and general labs, but his B12 levels, which his previous doctors had never checked, were dangerously low. When I explained this to him, I could see a mixture of relief and disbelief cross his face. For years, he had carried the shame of feeling weak. The truth was, his body had simply been starved of a nutrient it could no longer capture on its own. The solution, however, was remarkably straightforward. We began by introducing high-quality B12 supplements, but not just any over-the-counter version. Most cheap supplements use a form called cyanocobalamin, which older men often struggle to convert into its usable state. Instead, I prescribed methylcobalamin, the active form that requires no further conversion and is readily absorbed by the body. In Robert's case, because his deficiency was severe, we also began a course of doctor-administered B12 injections to quickly restore his stores. These injections bypassed the struggling digestive system entirely, delivering the nutrient directly into his bloodstream where it was needed most. The transformation was almost miraculous. Within 2 weeks, Robert reported feeling more alert in the mornings. After 1 month, the heaviness in his body began to lift. His mind grew sharper. The mental fog that had haunted him like a gray cloud for years finally broke. But perhaps most moving of all was the return of his intimacy. "Doc," he told me during one follow-up, "for the first time in years, I feel fully awake. Not just physically, but in my marriage too. That moment always stayed with me." Because what was restored to Robert wasn't just energy, it was his identity, his presence, his ability to be fully engaged with his wife, his children, his grandchildren, and his own sense of manhood. Too often, we underestimate what energy truly means to a man. It is not simply the ability to go for a jog or lift a heavy box. It is the foundation for everything else: focus, passion, resilience, confidence, intimacy. When that energy quietly slips away, so too does the man himself. That's why I consider vitamin B12 to be the second key in restoring the vitality of men over 60. Without it, you may still have blood flowing, but you lack the fuel to carry oxygen where it matters most. You may still have desire, but lack the strength to pursue it. You may still have love, but feel too hollow to express it fully. Restoring B12 is not just nutritional housekeeping, it is a lifeline. But as important as circulation and energy are, there is still one more silent enemy that attacks a man's vitality: inflammation and hormonal decline. And this leads us to the third key that so many men overlook. Before we move forward, I invite you once again, if Robert's story resonates with you, if you see pieces of yourself in his quiet struggle, please subscribe to this channel. By doing so, you're not only supporting my mission to share these critical lessons, but you may also help another man somewhere out there who is desperately searching for answers. Now, let us continue into the protective, often ignored world of vitamin E. In my many years of medical practice, I came to realize that for most men, the greatest danger is not what they feel, it's what they don't feel. The creeping loss that arrives quietly, without fanfare or warning, slowly stealing pieces of who they once were. Strength fades, desire weakens, confidence quietly erodes. Not overnight, but little by little, like sand slipping through fingers. This is where I met James. James was a 70-year-old retired commercial pilot from Florida. When he first sat down in my office, his frustration was heavy. But unlike some of my other patients, James had done everything society told him to do. He exercised regularly. He ate clean. He avoided the obvious pitfalls of poor health. And yet something was slipping through his grasp. "Doc," he sighed, "I don't understand. I'm not neglecting my body. I work out, I eat my greens, I avoid processed foods. But lately, I feel off. My energy isn't what it was. My drive is down, and honestly, I don't feel like a man anymore." There was a pause after he said it, as if he was ashamed to admit what so many men silently feel but dare not say. That loss of masculine identity, the sense of being disconnected from one's own vitality, is perhaps the most devastating blow aging men endure. It is not simply physical, it's spiritual. What haunted me most was how many of these men, like James, had not neglected their health at all. And yet, despite their best efforts, they were still being robbed of the very essence of their manhood. That's when I knew we were no longer simply battling bad habits or poor choices. We were dealing with a silent biological enemy that hides beneath the surface: inflammation. At the root of James's struggles, and many others like him, was another overlooked nutrient that holds enormous power for men beyond 60. Vitamin E. Most people hear vitamin E and think only of skin creams or antioxidant supplements for beauty. But for men, vitamin E serves a far greater, far more critical role. It acts as both a guardian of blood vessels and a fierce defender of hormonal health, particularly testosterone, the very hormone that fuels a man's strength, drive, ambition, and virility. Let me explain. As men age, oxidative stress, an invisible form of internal rust, begins to accumulate inside the body. Tiny molecules called free radicals attack the cells, tissues, and organs relentlessly. Over time, this low-grade inflammation corrodes blood vessels, disrupts hormone production, weakens the immune system, and slowly strips away the body's ability to function at its peak. This isn't sudden. This is not a crisis you feel overnight. This is the kind of deterioration that takes years to reveal itself. You wake up one day and wonder why everything feels weaker, why your motivation has dulled, why your edge has softened, why your intimacy feels more distant than before. The truth is, much of this gradual decline is not the inevitable result of age itself, but of unchecked oxidative damage chipping away at the systems that once operated with seamless precision. This is where vitamin E becomes absolutely essential. Vitamin E is one of nature's most powerful antioxidants. It neutralizes the free radicals that quietly attack your blood vessels, preventing the narrowing and stiffening of arteries that restrict blood flow. Healthy, flexible blood vessels are the foundation not only of physical endurance but of strong, reliable intimacy. But vitamin E's role doesn't stop at circulation. It also plays a vital role in supporting testosterone production, the hormone most synonymous with male vitality. Without adequate testosterone, it's not just physical performance that suffers. A man's entire sense of drive, ambition, motivation, self-assurance begins to erode. When testosterone dips, men often describe feeling flat, disconnected, unmotivated. Even their relationships suffer, not because love is gone, but because the inner engine that once powered their passion has quietly stalled. James was living proof of this process. We ran his labs. His testosterone wasn't dangerously low, but it was clearly in decline. More importantly, his inflammatory markers suggested his body was under silent attack from oxidative stress. He was like many men, unknowingly starving his system of the nutrients required to defend itself. You see, vitamin E is fat-soluble, meaning your body stores it and uses it as needed. But if your diet lacks rich sources, those stores eventually deplete. And most modern diets, even those of well-intentioned men like James, often fail to deliver the levels required for true protection. When I explained all this to him, James was stunned. "I thought I was doing everything right," he said quietly. And he was, at least by conventional wisdom. But conventional wisdom rarely accounts for the biochemical war happening beneath the skin as men age. We began his restoration immediately. Each day, James added specific vitamin E-rich foods into his meals. Almonds and sunflower seeds became staples in his snacks. He drizzled extra virgin olive oil over his salads. We included leafy greens like spinach and Swiss chard. And because food alone was not enough to reverse his existing deficiencies, we added a high-quality natural vitamin E supplement, not the cheap synthetic forms found in discount stores, but the full-spectrum version his body could fully utilize. Within 2 months, James returned to my office, different. His energy was returning. His drive, both professionally and personally, had sharpened once more. His confidence had crept back into his posture. And most importantly, his intimacy with his wife had revived in a way that reconnected them deeply. "Doc," he told me, smiling, "I feel like I got a part of myself back that I thought was gone forever." That is what men rarely understand until they experience it. Vitality is not something you fully appreciate until it slips away, and yet, it is not always gone forever. Often, it is simply buried beneath years of biological wear and tear, waiting to be uncovered. Vitamin E, when used correctly, is one of the most powerful tools for reclaiming that lost ground. But I must give you a word of caution. Not all vitamin E supplements are equal. The synthetic versions often lack the full spectrum of tocopherols and tocotrienols that your body needs. High-quality, natural-source vitamin E, sourced from food or carefully formulated supplements, is crucial. This is not an area to cut corners. James's story was not unique. I've seen countless men who, like him, thought their slow decline was something they simply had to accept. But with the right guidance, with proper nutrient support, and with a commitment to consistent action, they discovered what I believe every man over 60 needs to hear. It's not too late. And yet, as powerful as these three keys are individually, circulation, energy, and hormonal defense, their true strength emerges when they work together. That's where real transformation happens. That's where men like James, Robert, and Paul begin to feel whole again. In the next part of our journey, I will show you how these three forces combine into what I call the vitality triangle, and why most men fail to unlock its full potential. Before we continue, I invite you once again, if James's journey resonates with you, if you recognize these silent struggles in your own life, please subscribe to this channel. Your support allows me to continue sharing these lessons that medicine often neglects and may help another man out there rediscover his strength. Now, let us move forward to the final and most powerful piece of this puzzle. As a doctor who has walked with men through their battles with aging for more than 40 years, I've come to understand something that most of modern medicine still fails to grasp. Vitality isn't lost all at once. It doesn't vanish like a light switch flipped off. It fades quietly, persistently, through 100 small cracks forming beneath the surface. You hardly notice it until one day you do. And by then, many men believe it's too late. But I've sat with enough patience to know that it is not too late. I've seen what happens when you stop chasing shortcuts and start giving your body the very building blocks it's been pleading for, consistently, patiently, and in harmony. That harmony is what I've come to call the vitality triangle. You see, each of the three keys we've discussed, vitamin D for circulation, vitamin B12 for energy production, and vitamin E for hormonal protection, works powerfully on its own. But when you bring them together, something profound happens. It's no longer about isolated symptoms. It's about restoring an entire system, a man's entire identity, to its natural state of strength, clarity, confidence, and connection. Let me share with you the story of Frank. Frank was 66 years old when he first sat in my office. A retired carpenter from Michigan, Frank was a man who had built homes, raised children, and worked with his hands his entire life. But now, he found himself unable to complete the simplest of tasks without fatigue setting in. His sleep was restless. His afternoons were a battle to stay awake. His intimacy with his wife had become rare and strained, not for lack of love, but for lack of energy and drive. And worst of all, he felt it slipping faster with each passing year. "Doc," he said to me in that first meeting, "I don't need fancy tests or complicated programs. I just need to feel like myself again. I want to wake up in the morning and know I still have something left in the tank." I've heard versions of Frank's plea more times than I can count. And what I've learned is that most men don't need magic. They need structure. They need a daily rhythm that supports their biology instead of working against it. And above all, they need simplicity. So that's what we built for Frank. Each morning, Frank would begin his day with a full glass of water alongside a high-quality methylcobalamin B12 supplement, never the cheaper forms that his body would struggle to absorb. He took it with his breakfast, which I encouraged him to make protein-rich, often eggs, or Greek yogurt, because protein aids in the utilization of B12, allowing it to more effectively spark the energy pathways within his cells. After breakfast, Frank would lace up his shoes and go outside for a 15-minute walk under the morning sun. That walk wasn't just about exercise. It was about light, natural sunlight that awakened his body's production of vitamin D, the essential trigger for his blood vessels to open and flow freely again. On days when Michigan's sky was gray, or when winter robbed him of sunlight altogether, he replaced the sun with a high-quality vitamin D3 supplement, carefully dosed to meet his body's needs without excess. At lunch, Frank made small but deliberate choices to support his body further. A handful of almonds or sunflower seeds became part of his routine, alongside leafy greens like spinach or Swiss chard. He drizzled extra virgin olive oil over his salad, not for flavor alone, but to supply his body with natural vitamin E, the silent protector guarding his blood vessels from oxidative damage and nurturing the testosterone that fueled his sense of purpose. There were no extreme diets, no drastic lifestyle overhauls. Just deliberate, sustainable actions performed daily, with discipline and respect for his aging body's changing needs. After just a few weeks, Frank returned to my office with a quiet grin. His eyes were brighter. His handshake was firmer, his stories were livelier. And most importantly, his confidence had returned, not the overconfidence of youth, but the steady, grounded confidence of a man who had reclaimed control over his own health. He told me how he no longer needed to collapse onto the couch each afternoon. He was spending more time playing with his grandchildren, laughing at the dinner table with his wife, and feeling, as he described it, present. Again. That word present struck me deeply. Because that's what true vitality is. It's not about chasing youth. It's about being fully awake in your own life, fully present for the people you love, fully capable of giving your energy, your attention, and your affection without feeling hollow or spent. Frank's transformation wasn't rare. I've seen it again and again in men who embrace the vitality triangle not as a temporary fix, but as a lifelong rhythm. Because that's what aging well requires: rhythm, consistency, and respect for the body's evolving needs. The tragedy is that most men never experience this. They remain trapped in a cycle of half measures. They buy cheap supplements from discount stores, choosing synthetic forms their bodies struggle to absorb. They take them sporadically, missing days, weeks, or months, never giving their system the steady support it requires to truly heal. And when they don't see results, they give up, blaming age rather than misunderstanding. The truth is simpler, though not always easy. Your body doesn't need a dozen new pills or complex biohacks. It needs you to supply the right nutrients, in the right forms, with the right rhythm. I tell every man who sits in my office the same thing I told Frank. Your body still remembers how to feel strong. It's waiting for you to give it permission. And you do that not through desperation, but through deliberate action. The vitality triangle is not a miracle. It's not a secret formula hidden by some grand conspiracy. It's simply the biological reality that modern life has slowly robbed from so many aging men. But you can reclaim it. You can wake up feeling rested again. You can regain mental sharpness that allows you to focus, lead, and love with presence. You can reconnect with your partner, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. And perhaps most importantly, you can rediscover the steady, grounded pride of being fully yourself again. But only if you start. As I sit here now, retired from my daily practice, but still carrying the stories of countless men like Frank, I offer you this final thought: it's not too late, not even close. Whether you're 60, 70, or 80, your body still responds. It still remembers. And with the right care, it can still surprise you. If Frank's journey resonates with you, if any part of this message echoes in your own heart, I invite you once more. Subscribe to this channel. Not simply to support me, but to join a movement of men who refuse to surrender quietly. A movement of men who choose to fight for their vitality with knowledge, with discipline, and with hope. Now, my friend, it's your turn. Your next chapter is waiting. After more than 4 decades sitting across from men in the later stages of life, I have come to one undeniable truth. Aging is not the enemy. The real enemy is surrendering to the slow, quiet decline without understanding what is happening beneath the surface. Throughout my years, I've witnessed far too many men fall into this trap, believing that fatigue, low drive, weak circulation, and fading intimacy are simply normal parts of growing older. They accept the heaviness in their bodies, the fog in their minds, and the emptiness in their relationships as something they can no longer change. And in doing so, they unknowingly give up pieces of themselves. But the stories I've shared with you today, stories of Paul, Robert, James, and Frank, prove otherwise. These men were not exceptional. They were not gifted with rare genetics or secret treatments. They were simply men who learned the truth at the right time and took action before it was too late. What I have shown you throughout this journey is that vitality after 60 is not a mystery reserved for a lucky few. It's a biological process governed by your body's ability to receive and properly utilize 3 essential nutrients: vitamin D for circulation, vitamin B12 for energy, and vitamin E for hormonal defense and protection. Each of these keys alone can make a meaningful difference. But when combined, when supported with daily consistency and care, they create something far more powerful. They unlock the vitality triangle, allowing your body to remember its natural rhythm and strength. What can you learn from all of this? The most profound lesson is this: your decline is not written in stone. You still have the power to influence how you age. Your choices, even the small ones, have the ability to restore strength, sharpen your mind, revive your energy, reconnect your relationships, and rebuild your confidence. But knowledge alone changes nothing. It is action, done daily and patiently, that makes the difference. Begin by respecting your body's needs. Supply it with the right forms of these vital nutrients. Create a simple routine you can follow every single day without excuses or shortcuts. Over time, your body will respond. It always does. I often tell my patients, you may not become 25 again, but you absolutely can become the strongest version of the man you are today. A man who wakes up with energy. A man who feels present in his relationships. A man who can stand tall, knowing he did not surrender, but instead reclaimed his rightful place in his own life. That is the heart of this message. Now, my dear listener, allow me to ask you a simple question, one that may help you reflect on your own path. What do you believe is the most important ingredient for reclaiming vitality after 60? A. Waiting for your body to heal itself naturally, over time. B. Giving your body consistent, targeted support with the right nutrients daily. Please take a moment and leave your answer A or B in the comment section below. Your thoughts may help other men who are walking the same path, searching for encouragement and perspective. And if this message has resonated with you, I kindly invite you to subscribe to this channel. Your support not only helps me continue sharing these valuable insights, but also fuels my mission to serve more men who are still looking for answers. As a retired doctor, I no longer run a practice, but I continue this work because I believe that too many men are left in silence when they deserve guidance. Your subscriptions, your comments, your donations, no matter how small, allow me to invest my time, energy, and research into creating more resources that can serve you and others like you. If you feel called to contribute, your donations help keep this mission alive, and for that, I am deeply grateful. Together, we can build a community of men who refuse to simply fade away, but instead choose to thrive, fully, boldly, and with dignity. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself, stay strong, and remember, it's never too late.